you are all doing well. Today is October 4th, so it's a Tuesday. Hey, Deb! Oh, it's nice to see you there. I hope my front camera, it's starting to kind of glitch out a little bit, so I'm hoping that it's gonna bounce right back. And if not, I might have to turn off my front camera just momentarily. Long time no see, right? It's been a minute. Maybe turning on this light would help a little bit. I'm getting some funny shadows tonight, which is kind of funny. We're talking about tarot tonight. So, yay, bug tarot cards! So, I have not openly shared most of these illustrations yet. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are the first people to see some of these illustrations. It's taken me quite a little bit of time to come up with them and to kind of decipher meanings and those types of things. But that doesn't mean that I'm an expert, alright? So, I can share with you what I know, but we are mostly going to be focusing on the cool bug stories that I can also share through looking at our sketches. So, I'm excited you guys are here for a Tuesday night Invertober, and today we will be using ink. So, it's going to be one true to the name. Pretty excited about it. Oh, Deb and Avea, thank you for joining from a different class and coming on over here. I appreciate it. All right. So, let's see, what'll be the best way? I think the picture's just a little bit too close to the camera. There you go. That's pretty close. So, for each of my cards, I have just the name on the top and then a little bit of the description and stuff for me on the bottom. But I'm hoping to keep our camera mostly focused on the sketch in the center. I'm not sure... I'm not sure how much you, ladies and gentlemen, already know about tarot. So I'm gonna be kind of starting from scratch, giving you an overview of the tarot cards. I'm gonna describe to you what the tarot card kind of normally looked like and its kind of meaning and the way that I translated those meanings over into the insect world. Yay! So Avea wants to know if my cards follow the same meanings of the traditional tarot cards. And so the answer is yes. Yeah, the tower is what we would consider a major arcana, so it's one of those like key cards that if you see they have some type of meaning, but also the tower is a card that means kind of like great tragedy and like no good things to come. And so for the tower, if you want to get a little bit off focus, this is my tower. So I have this tower kind of burning and on fire in the background, and you've got the cloud with the lightning bolt, and then it's a locust. And so obviously our locust is feeding on this leaf up there, and he has like crowns and all types of other symbology, but I figured for the tower, because it is such like a hard, rough card and it's like no good, I figured a locust would kind of resemble that. Yeah, and actually, it took me forever thinking. I considered the tower over and over and over again, and it took me like a couple months to figure that one out. And then one of my friends, shout out to Amanda, she was the one who helped me come up with it, or like kind of triggered that idea. Hi, Susan. Welcome. So I'm glad I have all three of you ladies here tonight. We are talking a little bit we're talking a little bit of tarot. So, there are, in the tarot deck, there are 4 suits that they consider minor arcana, and those are actually kind of similar to a deck of cards. They go ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10, and then they go page, knight, queen, king. All right, so there's actually 14 cards per suit in a tarot deck, and then you have 4 suits, and those are considered minor arcana. And then you have the first 21 cards in the deck are major arcana, so those are separate from the suits. So today I figured we would do the wands, which is just 1 suit, and it is 13 cards. So we're going to be going over a bunch of different meanings and looking at a bunch of sketches. So this is going to be fun. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, cool. This is the Ace of Wands. So a lot of times the aces of any of the cards, they are some sort of kind of new beginning or a new energy, and the a new idea. And I thought that I would sketch an egg parasitoid. So this is a parasitic wasp, and it is inside of a stink bug egg. And stink bugs have egg clusters, so you can see kind of more of those eggs in the backwards. We're going to sketch kind of building out that way. And the idea is that this parasitoid wasp is just about to chew out of the stink bug egg. So it is very much like, new opportunities, and he's kind of being courageous, but also a lot of times these cards, they also mean you have to take some kind of action to let that thing happen. It's like, good things are coming if you do it, like if you take a hold of it. So this wasp has to chew out of this stink bug egg to succeed in its mission, right? To succeed in continuing the next generation. So, I do want to start, while I'm chatting, kind of start sketching, or inking some of these lines. This is a pupa, probably a pupa. Or just before it starts emerging. So it might have just come out. Let's see. So, that's also kind of funny because this wasp in particular, this one that I wanted to sketch, it is the wasp that I spent a lot of my time doing research on. So instead of just doing any egg parasitoid, I decided to do, this is Trisulcus Japonicus. It is the egg parasitoid that feeds on brown marmorated stink bug eggs. Or at least in China and Japan, that's what it kind of focuses on. When we have it here in the United States, it does feed on stink bugs other than the brown marmorated stink bug also. But that is the wasp that this friend is kind of based off of. And so, sketching and getting these tarot cards kind of in line is something that I've been working on for a while and just never kind of came around to finishing them up. So I'm really excited to kind of have an excuse to set time aside with you, ladies and gentlemen, and kind of get this done. If we want to talk about very fine details on our friends here, the end of the wasp antenna is a slightly expanded, kind of in like a little 3-segmented bulb at the end of the knob at the end of the antenna. That makes this species in particular a female. And another kind of running theme for the Ace of Wands, other than like birth and renewal and like being courageous and taking that next step, is kind of like there's like some little bit of like sexuality in that, and so I decided to make her a female. So we've got our stink bug egg coming into place. I'm actually gonna leave her mouth a little bit past the edge of the egg. That's actually where the Trisulcus, or where this egg parasitoid, would start chewing out of the egg. It would start chewing out right here at the edge. Because there is kind of like this egg cap on top, and that's where normally the stink bug would have pushed out also. Oh, Susan asks if I'm doing a specific family or order for each suit, and the answer is yes. So, there is an order for every suit, and the ones, which are the ones that we're doing today, are the bees, wasps, and ants. And I know you ladies and gentlemen really like stingy things, pokey things, so I figured we would start with the bees, the wasps, and the ants. So that's what we're starting with. That's what we're starting with today. Then, if you go to the other ones, I would have to look at them to remember which ones exactly. So I'm just coming in and adding the rest of these eggs in the cluster. Yay! I think he's looking really cool. That line finishes it up. All right. And Susan said, you guessed it was going to be a bug egg. I saw some stink bug eggs last year. Yes, exactly. Stink bug eggs are pretty famous for having these spines on the top along the edges. So I figured that was a pretty cool, thing to add on. Also, it helps you identify exactly what it is. This is a stink bug egg, and the wasp is a stink bug egg parasitoid. Now, one of the things that I really started working on when I started sketching these is because I was so used to drawing insects that drawing hands was a little bit of a challenge. So, we're going to see. I'm excited to see how well going over these sketches is going to turn out. That's not bad. Cool. So once I get this guy all figured out, we can head on to the next one. And then I think I have some kind of clouds sketched in here, but I think I'm going to add the clouds when I actually color it. So that's our Ace of Wands. Can you tell us what the wasps... Wait. I like using the symbolism of something unexpected coming out of that egg. Yes. Is that unexpected part the usual symbolism for this card? The unexpected part, maybe not, but the idea of it's more like new, It's more like kind of a new self-image, or like it's not a stink bug, it's a wasp, so it's kind of like a new self-image, or like new opportunities, like birth, being courageous to come out of the egg. Those are kind of the ideas that the original card showed. What is on the wasp's back? Wings. Yes, those are the wings of the wasp. Our egg parasitoids do have 4 wings, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. But this egg parasitoid in particular doesn't have much wing venation. So you see this one individual line, that is pretty much their only wing venation. They have one vein that starts at the base and goes out a little bit and splits and makes a Y, and that's it. Oh, I forgot to give it its abdominal segments. That's better. So, we also had the question of what generally the entire suit of wands means. And wands are kind of inspiration, determination, and strength. And so when I'm thinking about kind of determination and strength, and relating them to insects, I will a lot of times go back to colonies, like colonies of bees and colonies of wasps, where they have like so much, their kind of strength in numbers. Ace of Wands, birth, change, new self-image, courageousness. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I have some of these written down here. These are the terms that I had written directly from cards. So I wrote birth, energy, inspiration, sexuality, new opportunities, source of inspiration, courageous. But with all aces, they need to be grasped. So that's a friend. All right, let's move on to number 2. Oh, the Two of Wands is so much fun. Ladies and gentlemen, this... All right, so this is the Two of Wands. And the Two of Wands, normally the card's meaning is... All right, so the idea behind the Two of Wands is that you kind of have 2 choices, and that you're gonna have to kind of choose a path and take it. A lot of times, some of the meanings behind that, or like some of the emotions behind that, are like contemplation and planning and kind of choices. So the idea is, when you see the Two of Wands, you're thinking that you have the ability to be original, but you're going to have to be deciding between 2 choices, taking a path, and just like moving forward. And so this is the craziest little beetle out there. That's the guy that makes a new ant butt. Yes, it is. And as you, ladies and gentlemen, know, it always comes back to butts. So this is Nymphister cronari, if I said that right. Cronari. This is a species of hister beetle that in the rainforest, it will bite on or hold on to the right between the thorax and the abdomen of an army ant. All right? And it pretends to be the abdomen of the army ant. And honestly, from the top, if you look at this army ant from the top, this beetle looks exactly like the texture and everything of this ant. It's super, super impressive. And so that is the, that's the story I wanted to share with the Two of Wands, is this idea of having the ability to be original and kind of deciding your path. I also wanted to make this ant look like it was going left, and then to kind of put this oak leaf here. And then back here, making an ant that was kind of like walking away into the distance, like it was making a different choice than this ant who has a beetle on its butt. This guy's definitely making a different choice. He just sticks with his own abdomen, whereas this friend here, well, he has a phoretic beetle. And I laugh because, you know, a lot of times when you think about phoresis or when an animal is like taking a ride on another animal, a lot of times when you think about phoresis, you're not considering beetles. Like that's not normal. So I'm gonna start line sketching this, and if you have questions about our friend here, go ahead and shoot me a message. One thing I found really interesting, I was reading a little bit more about this beetle, so that I knew kind of how to share it with you when we started talking about it. And here's something a lot of fun. This beetle was only found holding on to pretty much this one specific species of army ant. It was found specifically on one. So it's species, this is a species specific phoresis. And I find that fascinating because this beetle even has the exact same texture and the exact same color as these ants. So he's doing a really good job at his job of being an abdomen of an ant. So we are getting the ant's tarsal segments in, and our army ant's first tarsal segment is really long in comparison to all of the other segments. So you'll notice that it almost looks like I'm giving him a second tibia, and that's not the case. That's just his first tarsal segment. Now, army ants have two nodes. A node are these bumps in between the thorax and the abdomen. So an army ant has two of them, and our phoretic beetle is going to take a bite between those two. Speaking of butts, I just saw a really cool paper about butterflies and moths with spider butts. I don't know if I've heard of that. So I'm going through and I am adding these individual lines, kind of the outside lines of the abdomen first, so that they align. And then I'm just going to go back through and add this lateral line so it all stays nice and connected. Our little bitty eye. I always think looking at ants' heads is really funny because they have such small eyes. You would expect them to be a lot larger. So this is our friend here, the army ant. All that it needs left are the mandibles. Alright, so that's our beautiful army ant. And then we're to be looking at the beetle. Now, the beetle's head is right about here. It's going to kind of be behind this leg. But when I'm sketching the beetle, we're going to be able to see the pronotum, which is that first segment of the thorax, and we can see the elytra, or the first pair of wings on our friend here. Let's see. So, our legs... Our beetle can kind of hold its legs and tuck its legs really close to its body. And they're even going to kind of pull themselves in and make themselves look circular so that all of their legs kind of fit into that abdominal region. Let's see. And then the bottom of the abdomen is some stripies there, and there is some striation. I'm gonna kind of dot it along this line because these striations are very textured also, so I'm probably gonna add some coloration in there. But that's our friend, the Two of Wands. The two blobs between the thorax and the abdomen. We learned about that when we sketched your queen ant, but what are they called? These two little blobs between the thorax and the abdomen are called nodes. So they're called nodes right there, those two little blobs. We're doing an okay, Oakleaf. Sometimes, I get so used to drawing insects that sometimes leaves will make me nervous. We got this. Alright, I believe that's everything for now. I do have this little ant colony in the back there, but I want to touch it up a little bit along with this ant before I ink it out. So I think that that's going to be good for our Two of Wands. Kind of two different choices and contemplating, right? They have the ability to be the original or choose to be different. And this one decided to not. Yay! Alright, this is the Three of Wands. Alright, so our friend here is an elate. So this is an elate ant, or kind of like a princess ant, right? She the Three of Wands is all about long-term plans, setting something into motion, but then also taking steps forward. A lot of times it talks about a journey, and the image is normally kind of a boat going over the sea. So I thought it would be fun. This is a little bit of personification, but I thought it would be fun to take a princess ant, right, who's just become a queen. She chewed off her wings and is leaving her wings behind, and she's in a little leaf boat with two eggs, kind of sailing to this island over here. And so that is what I thought would be fun for the Three of Wands. And so that is, it kind of tells a little story there. Sometimes when this card comes up, this card comes up, it also means that you might have to, like, let go of something in your past or kind of move forward and change. But I believe that this princess, she's just now starting on a brand new journey. And she has just chewed off her own wings, right? Queen ants, they start off with 4 wings, and right after they're mated, after their mating flight, they don't need those wings anymore. And so they chew off their own wings. And a lot of times when you are looking at queen ants, you can actually see their wing scars. You can see the scars on the edges of their thorax where they chewed off their wings. I also, where there are constellations that align with the original meetings, I've kind of hidden constellations into the imagery. All right. So we've got a head, our thorax. We're kind of looking at her from behind as she's kind of sailing away. So it's a little bit trickier of shapes. But this is kind of how I imagine this. The main part of her thorax here getting kind of narrow and then coming back to her abdomen, kind of going off screen. Her front pair of legs is right here, kind of coming down and taking care of her eggs, likely. Maybe. I'm going to have to fix that leg, I think. And then we've got another leg coming out here. That's the thing with ants. They're so leggy. There should be another leg that comes out from here, but I don't know where she would have put it. So when I redo these in my, when I'm redoing these are actually going to be digital, but I wanted to make sure that these sketches became outlines so that they were easier to digitalize. And when I fix these on digital, I'll be able to fix things like some of these lines going in the wrong directions. I did want to get some of this wing venation of an ant kind of on here. So we've got some coastal cells, or some we call this the stigma, where it's up near the costa and it gets really thick and dark here. That's what we're going to call the stigma. It's spelled S-T-I-G-M-A. I kind of imagined this being a tree that she hung her wings on, but I don't think I am just yet ready to finish that ink line. So that is my elate female. Does the ant die? If not, what was the purpose of... Oh, we are asking about the 2. Deb wants to know, does the ant die? And if not, what is the purpose of the beetle latching onto the ant? This is an example of pheresis, and pheresis is where it uses another organism for just for transportation. So our beetle is not going to be feeding on my ant. My beetle is just hopping a ride on the army ant to take a ride. There is no negative side effects to either of them. I would assume that the beetle does get some type of positive effects, but I'm not sure exactly where they're heading. Now, a lot of times when you've got, let's see, there are pseudoscorpions and pseudoscorpions are what I can think of that are also phoretic. They just kind of hold on to an animal, and so they'll transport them from one place in the forest to another place in the forest, hoping that there is more and better food. I would assume that that's the case in these guys, but there are cases where the insect hops a ride and takes a ride all the way back to the colony and feeds on its babies. This beetle is not one of those. So, this beetle here isn't going to be negative to our ant at all. It's just phoretic. It holds on for a while, and then it lets go. But I'm not sure exactly. And also, I'm not sure if we know. This is a pretty unique interaction. And actually, the species of beetle that does this was named after the guy who discovered this interaction because it's so rare. I mean, that's also a true case, right, Susan? I like that. So, if you are an ant abdomen, you are getting a little bit of protection. So not only are you getting a ride to somewhere better, possibly, there is a moment that you can feel safe and you know something else is protecting you. You kind of don't have to protect yourself. That's kind of cool. I wanted to get some leaf veins on there so you can see that it's kind of a curled up leaf. I am pretty happy with the Three of Wands setting in motion kind of to travel, launching sort of like long-term plans. And she is definitely going to start a whole brand new colony. Exactly. You know, do you require phoresis? Exactly. I laugh about that because I was thinking that exact same thing when I was sketching this. It's like, you know, then neither of them are getting any significant benefit other than, you know, the beetle's getting from one place to another. Yeah, totally a piggyback ride. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. So, I believe, have these all been ants? No. The first one was a wasp. All right. The second two are ants. This is bees, wasps, and ants. So, I guess I was feeling the ants. Our Four of Wands. Wait a minute. You said where is the Queen Ant's mouth? In the other direction. So we're looking at the back of her head. And so I can't sketch it on that side, I don't think. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. Does that not look like the back of its head? I might have to edit this a little bit. I wonder if I added some, if I added just one mandible to the side, do you think that maybe I could even... I just feel like her mouth parts aren't going to be so high. They're going to be kind of lower. So... maybe I could give her one mandible right about here? Would that look like a, would that look better? Would that look more like an ant mouth part? One mandible with a tiny point of the other. I think that the thorax needs to be... See, these are images that are essentially, you know, I thought they were ready to do this with, but maybe they just needed a little bit more work. So we're going to imagine this line doesn't exist, and maybe seeing the finalization of the thorax, where it connects to the head, then the bulbous, and then you add this mandible here. And I don't think that this mandible is gonna... That's closing in on it. So like I said, you ladies and gentlemen, yay! Alright, you ladies and gentlemen are the first people to see some of these sketches. So, here we go. Our friend here, let's see. Oh my, that is a brave ant to hang out that close to a big spider. That is not a big spider. Do you ladies and gentlemen know what a honeypot ant is? So this is a honeypot ant. Very good. So our honeypot ant does have 6 legs. It's got a head, a thoracic region, the very tip of the abdomen, and this huge bulbous abdomen. Oh no, it's one of those ones that Marley talks about sometimes. I don't know if Marley talks about these ants, but this is a honeypot ant, and so the other ants feed this ant, yum, 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 all of the nectars and all of those things, and then they're gonna hold all of that yummy sugar water in their abdomen, and essentially they are the honeypot. These ants, they live in the desert where sometimes food goes away, and sometimes their water source goes away. So they have these honeypot ants that are kind of just hanging out in the colony, storing sugar water in case the desert runs out of food, or in case the desert runs out of water. So that is our sketch here. Now, because it is the 4 of Wands, we have 4 ants on our paper, and you'll see that on all of these, I believe. The Ace has 1, the 2 of Wands has this ant here, and then it's going to have this second ant here once I get that one done. I believe my 3 of Wands here, I've got my 1 adult, and then I've got 2 eggs. And those count. I figure those count because they are ants. And on my 4 of Wands, I have 3 little worker honeypot ants and this big one. You want to meet one. You know, there are people who will actually eat honeypot ants, and they say they do kind of taste like a little ball of honey. So they kind of create honey, but then just store it in their abdomen, rather than spitting it back up like a honeybee would and fanning over it and caring for it. They just keep it safe in their abdomen. And there, now that you know what it is, I have to ask you, Is it the same ones that Marley talks about? Yeah, I bet you they're the same. People do eat them, and I would consider them fat-bottomed, for sure. Their abdomens are huge. And, let's see, this one's a rough one to start, because I also gave her this little crown of leaves here, so I want to make sure that that stays nice. Sometimes inking takes a whole lot of concentration. So while I'm getting this little crown taken care of, because it's very kind of detailed, I just want to say these ants for sure are fed on in their native locations, and they are found in and around Mexico, so it wouldn't surprise me if the people there had a name for these ants and how they taste, because it's for sure a part of their diet. Alright, so I have the thoracic region, and then this would be where our abdomen is, and then our first abdominal segment is the same color as the rest of the sclerotized body. Now, I accidentally angled mine a little differently, so I'm going to be making the sphere more like this, I believe. So we'll be moving this little ant over a little bit, but I have never tried one. Now, the funny thing about these ants is that if you feed them different colors of colored, colored sugar water, like red sugar water and purple sugar water and blue sugar water, you can change the colors of their abdomens, all of those different colors. Now, there are sclerites, or hardened parts of the exoskeleton, and they look like little squares on the body. And these are kind of those plates, and all around it is really, really thin exoskeleton. And all of this thin areas, this is where she's expanding from. And that's also why when you give her sugar water, you can see those colors, because you can pretty much see through her abdomen around these sclerites. So you've got the sclerites here that are hardened, but around them, you can pretty much see through them. And these ants, they hang upside down. They're underground, and they hang upside down all day long. And if you have them in colony, you need to make sure that you don't bump the terrarium. Because if you bump the colony and these ants fall, they do not have the ability to get themselves back up. Alright, they fall, they don't make it anymore. I'm not sure if when they fall, the worker ants will kind of feed off of them and kind of use them for their nutrients. I would assume that they do, because they are so full of that yummy sugar water. I can't imagine the ants letting them kind of just go. right, and this final leg is going off in this direction, and the plan is to kind of, let's see. Having it going off into that direction. Yeah, so that is our friend the Honeypot Ant. Let's see. I kind of want to put some in my tea. I love that. And you know what? They would probably taste really good in tea. They probably would. Now, I'm coming back in, and I'm just really quickly giving myself these other 3 ants. Now, they aren't our focus ants in the piece, so I think when I make them a little bit smaller, I'm also just going to give them stick legs rather than giving them thick legs. I think that that will look all right. And this little friend in the background. And then one more little friend. So we have 4 ants. And I imagine this being kind of a darker sand rocky color because these ants do hang underground. All right, so I think as I was talking about the ants, I forgot to tell you what the actual 4 of Wands originally means. And originally, the 4 of Wands is talking about celebration and reward within teamwork. So you've completed stage 1, you're really excited about it, and you're moving forward. That's the type of idea. So I would definitely say that the Honeypot Ant success is only through teamwork, and kind of the completion of a stage to kind of fill out one of these ants. That was my thought process as I was going through this, is kind of and this ant is actually drinking from the Honeypot Ant. So I'm thinking that this is very similar to kind of a celebration or receiving a reward kind of results, right? So that is the idea behind our Honeypot Ant. Aha! The 5 of Wands is all about competition. The 5 of Wands is all about competition. It's about conflict. It's about petty hassles. It's about, it can be kind of friendly competition, but it's all about competition. And when I think about bees, wasps, and ants and how they relate to competition, I think about pollination and the competition between that. Because these flowers, they only have so much nectar to give their bees. Susan says, hang on, that's a member of Master AC, which means there are enough flowers to share. Well, yes, but hey, Aster AC is an easy one to sketch, and I like it. And this is just symbolic, ladies and gentlemen. So, yes, our top 5 Hymenopteran pollinators. These 5 individuals are directly in relation to Well, it's technically 4 families. I separated Bombus, the bumblebee, from Apis, our native honeybee. All right, so our number 1 native pollinator, that is a native are the bumblebees, right? Bumblebees are an entire genus of bees. They are Bombus. And then you've got this one over here, and they're in the same family, right? They're both in the family Apidae, but this one is a native, and our honeybee, Apis mellifera, is non-native. So I always kind of like to show that competition, but also the honeybees are the top pollinator here in the United States, even though they're not native. And the bumblebees are the top native pollinators. So if the honeybees weren't around, this would be the king bee right here. Plus, bumblebees are also colonial, or they live in colonies, whereas these other bees that we're about to talk about, these are solitary bees. So we have over here to our left, this is a leafcutter bee in the family Megachilidae. And we have, this is our yellow-faced bee, so it's it's a mining bee in the family Andrenidae. And then this is a plasterer bee in the family Coletidae. And so those are going to be the next 3 kind of top native pollinators. And people generally haven't heard of these guys. The plasterer bees and the mining bees and the leafcutter bees. They're not really regularly talked about, but they're top pollinators, at least top bee pollinators. Oh, that would be cool. Yes, feel free to share. So this is the 5 of Wands, all about competition, and in the discussion in general, it's about pollination competition. There's a little bit of symbology down here to share. Competition, there's a problem to solve. Could be petty hassles or friendly competition. You know, this competition, it is a competition. There is food to be had. But sometimes, you know, I imagine pollination competition you're right. There are so many flowers out there. So, you know, the other thing is, though, even though there are bunches and bunches of flowers can run out of nectar, and they're not always producing nectar. A lot of flowers will produce nectar at certain times of the day, and then when they're out, they're out. And so the honeybees actually have a time-space memory, so they can remember what flower to be at, so which flower or where they have to be, and they can remember when they have to be there. Bee, bee, bee. Bee, bee, bee. All right, so let's see. I'm going to start with my friend Bombus up here. Now, Bombus have both chewing and lapping mouth parts. I believe we've shared that with you before. They've got those kind of chewing mouth parts up at the front, but then they have kind of that tongue that looks like it has bristles at the end. And that's going to be how they drink their food. They have these beautiful elbowed antennae. And as you know, Bombus are super fluffy. And I believe recently I shared with you, ladies and gentlemen, our insect word for fluffy is cetos, right? So insect hair is called setae. And when you want to say, wow, that bee is fluffy, you can say, wow, that bee is cetos. So we've got her legs taken care of. We've got this thoracic region and the abdomen. Gonna sketch out these wings. one more. Sometimes, every now and again, my camera gets in the way of the sketching. That's fine. Oh, I love how she's turning out. I do want to add some of these darker lines, but when I digitize these sketches, I'm going to be adding a lot of this color. I'm happy with that. All right, so that's Bombus, our bumblebee. Oh, your buck moths are out, and they are super duper cetos. Putting the lines in helps with the texture. Yeah, I'm seeing that. I think that it kind of gives it just a little bit more of a pop, and it kind of helps with that. And I think even when I give it some coloration, even if I give it some coloration online graphically, it's gonna be helpful to have a little bit of that texturing, for sure. Now, I will admit, in the grand scheme of things, I haven't been inking for a whole lot of time. And so there are likely some of you out there, many of you, some of you, who should be teaching me how to ink. So our next friend here is our honeybee. Our honeybee does have pollen baskets. Those are right here on her hind legs. She is kind of purposely dragging these hind legs behind because she's gonna have lots of pollen on them. All right, so our honeybee. Our honeybee has a little bit more of a wasp or a bee waist. The bumblebee is a lot more fluffy, right? It's a lot more hairy, so you can't see the waist as much, but this bee waist is going to be significant. And then we can come in and give it some of this stripes along the top. Oh, she's so fun. And then the rest of our little friends. Now, each of these little friends have distinguishing characteristics that help us identify them. This one right here, I know is our Leafcutter Bee. And that's because of... I'll write it. That's because of the scopa. So I laugh about that because whenever I think of scopa, I think of opa. But the scopa is where the leafcutter bees are going to be collecting their pollen. So rather than having a pollen basket on their leg like a honeybee, leafcutter bees have a scopa. And that is an area on the bottom side of their abdomen that has specialized long fluffy hairs that will collect pollen on the bottom side of its abdomen. And so these leafcutter bees are very obvious if you are looking for them in your garden and they've been busy pollinating. Because if you see a leafcutter bee and she's a female who's been busy pollinating, the bottom of her abdomen is going to be yellow and it's going to be covered in pollen. And it's just going to look super powdery, super yellow. So that is our friend, the leafcutter bee. The Leafcutter Bee's family name is Megachilidae, spelled like this. Oh, are the scientific names of all of the families something that you ladies are interested in? What actually is the pollen basket when it's not full of pollen? I don't think I've ever seen anything but a big orange blob. Right. So the pollen basket on the hind leg of a honeybee is specialized long hairs. The leg segment is kind of indented a little bit, and there's these long hairs coming out of it. And then the honeybee collects that pollen onto the hind legs, and they kind of compact it, and they compact it, and they compact it. And so that's why when we see it, it looks like a really solid orange blob. But if you look at pollen on other insects, maybe like bumblebees, it kind of looks like they've been dusted with cheese powder. That's because the pollen basket are these hairs that are kind of like barbed, and they help condense all of that pollen into one more solid mass. Also, are the pollen on pollen baskets for the honeybees, a lot of times, even after they pass, those pollen baskets stay. So we're actually able to see them on the hind legs of the bee. Whereas sometimes when you collect a bumblebee and it's covered in pollen, all of that pollen just falls off because, yes, the friend is fluffy, but its hairs aren't barbed. So the pollen just kind of falls off. So that's what it is. And that is our friend the Megachilid, or the Leafcutter Bee. No problem, Deb. Thank you for hanging out. I hope you've really enjoyed what you've seen so far. And we have a handful more to go through. I do wonder if we're gonna finish if I continue doing the line work. We're probably gonna close down. Well, let's see how we're feeling. I'm not gonna promise anything. Alright, so this is our next friend here. This is going to be the yellow-faced bee. Make sure. Sometimes I get these two mixed up, so I wanted to make sure I knew. Yeah. Alright, I wanted to double check to make sure I was understanding these final two families, because a lot of times I get coletids and andrenids mixed up. So these are two solitary bees. So they're bees that only care for themselves and their young. They don't have larger colonies. This one here has a super fluffy face, and this is going to be an andrenidae, or what we'll call the mining bee. And so I think personally the Five of Wands is a pretty cool card because it has so many different families of insects on it. And I find that that's kind of cool. It's not just kind of one insect that we're seeing over and over. It's 5 different families all on the same. Let's see, we've got our andrenid here. I'm actually gonna change its wings up. Oops, I dropped my pen. I'm actually gonna change its wings up, so let me grab a pencil. I want the wings closer to here instead. Yeah, that's gonna be better. Okay. Cool. All right, so that's our friend the andronid or the mining bee. Now, mining bees are also well known for having cetos faces. So if you look on the front of a mining bee, they are super fluffy up here. Whereas our coletids, or our plasterer bees, which is our next family, these guys are a little bit more, they're less cetos. They're less fluffy. And this one is kind of looking down at us. So it's kind of looking more in this direction. And I think, personally, I've been growing a lot as an artist using online through sketching with you ladies and gentlemen and when I'm teaching with students. And so some of these sketches are kind of like old Trisha. So I'm trying to kind of update them and give them more detail as I'm going through also. So we've got our head, our thorax, our abdomen. It's got striping happening. Now I want to make sure I give our wings proper attention. We might want to, I think I want veins on these. We might have to fix him. That's fine. He's got antenna. Alrighty. So they are drinking. Yay! I do want to sketch. I do want to go ahead and alrighty. So we have our friend the Five of Wands, all inked out with five different five different species of pollinators here in the United States for pollination competition. So if you had a honeybee in a collection, you could identify what plants it had been pollinating by examining the pollen. Yes, true story, Susan. In fact, I knew people who were doing that research, and they were going back into honeybees over the course of time, and they were collecting the pollen to see if the flowers that they were pollinating changed over time. And not only can you tell the species of the plants that the honeybees were pollinating, but you can also tell like chemical compounds of things in the pollen. For instance, if you had neonicotinoids or pesticides, you can test for that in the pollen as well. Hi, Chaos! Today is Tarot Tuesday, and so we are going over my wands, and we are looking at a variety of different cards. We just finished the Five of Wands that had pollination competition, but we're moving on to the Six of Wands, and I gotta tell you, the Six of Wands is a really cool story. So for this one, I had a difficult time coming up with an individual until I thought of the emerald roach wasp. So the meaning behind, we're going to switch it over to the Six of Wands and the emerald roach wasp. All right, so we were talking about the Six of Wands, and this is our friend, the emerald roach wasp, and there's a handful of his friends kind of standing around watching. We know that this is a 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Hymenopteran, and this guy right here, who's a cockroach. Right? Now, the meaning behind Six of Wands is self-confidence and taking pride in your ability to lead. You've worked hard and now you're kind of receiving praise. It's kind of about celebrating your triumphs. All right. So whether you're not at your final destination, you've won something cool and your peers are, your peers are watching. So this friend here is an emerald roach wasp, and they have this crazy biology. If you've never heard of the emerald roach wasp, it's definitely an insect worth reading a little bit about. This is a parasitoid wasp that will sting a cockroach, and not only does it sting and paralyze the roach, but it stings and paralyzes them in a very specific manner. They will sting the first time somewhere in between the legs, in between the tarsal segments, in between the coccyx. So right up here in between the front pair of legs, and they aim for the locomotion. So when this wasp stings the in between the legs, the cockroach can't move. All right, it no longer has the ability to run. But that sting is only going to last a short period of time. And while the cockroach is unable to move, the wasp stings it a second time. And this time, the wasp carefully sits on the roach and stings the roach essentially in the neck. And it stings directly into the brain of the cockroach. All right? They say brain, it's kind of like the central ball of ganglion, because insects have a series of ganglion that are kind of all clustered together, but there's the one in the head that kind of leads them all, and that's what people generally call the brain. Now, this wasp will sting the cockroach in the neck directly into its brain, and this sting takes away its need to run away. It takes away its, what do we call that? That gut feeling that like, hey, I need to run away. Something bad is happening. It's like it takes away their reflex to run away. And so then the wasp will carefully nibble on the end of the cockroach antenna. All right, it will cut the antenna in half, and it'll kind of drink some of the hemolymph. It'll drink a little bit of the roach's blood coming out of both antenna, and then it'll grab the roach by one antenna, and it will lead the cockroach into a hole. The cockroach doesn't run away. It's been stung in the brain, all right? It doesn't know what's going on. It just agrees with everything. And it will just agree with everything for the rest of its short lifespan, for the rest of its short life. So it's going to get dragged into a hole. The wasp then lays a singular egg on the cockroach. The baby wasp, or the grub, takes 3 or 4 days and feeds on the outside of the cockroach before chewing into the body of the roach and then feeding on the inside. All right. The wasp, when it pupates, when it turns into a pupa, will actually pupate inside of the exoskeleton of the cockroach. And when it emerges as a wasp by chewing itself out of the cockroach. Now, that is a Halloween story. All right. How many cards are there in a tarot deck? Well, there are 14 of every suit. There are 4 suits. That makes 28, 56. And then there are an additional 21. 56 plus 21 is 77. I believe there are 78. Because there's a 0. 0 to 21 is, yeah. So, that is our friend, the Emerald Roach Wasp. And I have always thought that they were, I thought that they were super cool. And so when I had the ability to like, think about an insect that, you know, worked hard to get what it needs and has a right to kind of celebrate its own triumph, I feel like this little wasp kind of gets that done. Yeah, self-preservation instinct, there's an actual term for it, and I know that that's something that will get stuck in our heads, so let me go ahead and look it up, because I know exactly where I'll find this word, because I was reading it just a minute ago. The escape reflex. So he stings him in the brain in the area that directly controls his escape reflex. So he no longer has a reflex to escape. Yeah. So then he's just like, yes, all right. And actually, even if the wasp sits there and doesn't chew on its antenna, the cockroach kind of will just sit there and clean itself like it's all calm and happy, even though it's been stung twice. Alright, so I'm going ahead and getting started on sketching our friend here. Our friend the Emerald Roach Wasp, is also a beautiful wasp. Please go and look it up. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's all metallic colored. It does have these kind of clubbed antennae at the end. Let's see. So, Susan said wasps are so cool, and I would definitely have to agree. I think that, wasps can have some of the most interesting life histories, but also, there are so many insects out there on the planet. It's hard for me to say that there's so many cool insects out there. Don't worry, today is all about bees, wasps, and ants, but we will get to the beetles and the flies. I think that you guys are also going to gain a lot of knowledge about flies when we're talking about them, because we haven't really sketched very many flies in the past, so I think that there's a lot of things that we can add to that. And now for me, instead of going through and sketching every single one of all 6 of these wasps, I'm just going to do this first one, and I'm going to do the cockroach with its antenna in the wasp's mouth. Because obviously it has been successful, and it's going to lead this cockroach to its fate. And our cockroach has a pronotum, or this shield that guards its up here. And then we have wings. And we have our legs. There's definitely a sort of style that I'm also going with this in this guy. You know, I'm not sketching every single detail like many of the times we are when we're live streaming. I'm trying to get kind of the basic shapes taken care of, but I'm not doing every individual tarsal segment, for instance. He's so cute. I'm sorry, friend. You're not gonna make it. Yeah, Susan looked it up. It is a lovely teal with red legs. Exactly. I couldn't remember exactly the colors, so I wasn't gonna say them. So thank you for sharing them. They are absolutely beautiful. And also, that's why they're called emerald. All right. Ha. So, here's what I'm thinking. We have about 4 minutes left. I do kind of want to get to bed tonight. So, what I'm thinking is we're going to go through the rest of the cards, and I want to show you what they look like, and talk to you about the symbology in the meeting. But, I think getting six of these inked today was pretty successful. I'm pretty happy with that. So, this is the 7 of Wands. And this one is the Suturing Army Ant. So, as you can see, it has ginormous mandibles. All right, absolutely huge. And now this species in the Amazon rainforest was actually used by the native people as a suture or as a stitch. So if they got a larger cut or like a large gash on their arm or on their leg, what they would do is they would find one of these suturing army ants, they would hold it up to their skin, they would have the army ant bite them, and then they would pop its head off, and they leave the head on the wound. All right, and the head, after it clamps down, those jaws are not going to release. And that was one stitch. And the native people, they would collect these, and they would use them as stitches. And then they would essentially have just a line of dead ant heads that were holding their skin together. That is a Halloween story, too. Man, we're having a good Invertober today. So, this, yeah. I love telling you these stories and what they mean and how everything relates to each other. I've been really enjoying this. So, the 7 of Wands is all about defending what matters, being prepared to stand up for what you believe in, and not backing down in a fight. Something along the lines of, you may have to be aggressive, or defiant, but you're gonna have to kind of stand up for what you believe in. And suturing army ants do not stand down. And even after they bite, they do not let go. All right? And that is why they are so good at suturing, is because they don't let go. So that's the meaning of Seven of Wands and why I chose the suturing army ant. Then there's one with 6 of them kind of surrounding the one. And I believe that this are 6 ants of another species, because he's kind of defending himself against the strangers, admittedly. All right, now this one is a little bit hectic. Keep in mind that we are now getting to 8. Like, we have to sketch 8 individuals on one of these. And so what I was thinking, because the 8 of Wands, let's see, the 8 of Wands is all about, like, things happening really, really quickly and super intense energy and kind of rushing to get things done. And sometimes it refers to passionate romance. So I wanted to kind of mix it all together and say, hey, this is a mating swarm. All right. I don't even know if I had decided on what type of bee or wasp it was swarming, so I'm going to have to look into that before I inkline these to make sure they have the correct characteristics. You know what? It could even be an ant. You know what? There are nodes on these guys. These are carpenter ants. So this is a carpenter ant swarm. And it's a mating swarm, so travel by air, check. A lot of times when they're talking about travel, you'll also see a staff and some leaves. So that's something that you'll see in a variety of my cards, are like staffs and leaves as symbology. I also have a constellation in here. Admittedly, I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. So that's what we're talking about here with the 8 of Wands. We're talking about super fast, intense energy, things that are happening quickly, and generally it can talk about passionate romance. Oh, Chaos mentioned, isn't there a ritual too with army ants that they are stitched into a glove and they keep their hand in it? So, there is an ant that is that way. That is actually the bullet ant. Those aren't army ants. Bullet ants are another species of stinging ant, and they, I believe, are now number 2 the second most painful sting out of any sting out there, based on the Schmidt Pain Index. So some people say that being stung by one singular bullet ant feels like being shot with a bullet. But back down in South America, there are some native tribes that will take these bullet ants and hand weave them into gloves. And then the boys have to wear the gloves, not just once, but multiple times over the series of a time period. And after they successfully complete all of their placing their hand into this stinging ant glove, they can prove that they are men. And so that's how the boys move into adulthood in that tribe, is they have to essentially pass this challenge of wearing this ant glove that is stinging and hurts like crazy. Now, for me, this is the 9 of Wands, and I remember sketching this friend here. Admittedly, it's been a minute. This is a velvet ant. And I'm glad I'm not inking this one yet, because I do want to fix the shape of the head here. But with the Nine of Wands, the meaning on the Nine of Wands is a lot of times kind of strength and the growth of wisdom through like learning lessons. It's the idea of that, like, you need to kind of push through really difficult experiences to kind of gain the strength and the wisdom, and then once you do, you have the ability to kind of look back on those things. So I, at some point, was reminded of a velvet ant because velvet ants, well, when I think about, like, lessons learned from bees, wasps, and ants, velvet ants have very, they have, like, long stingers, and they have mobile stingers. So this ant has a stinger that's probably half the length of its abdomen, and it can come out of the abdomen, but not only can it come out straight, but their stingers can turn and curve and rotate and kind of angle towards wherever they want. And so because velvet ants have this ability to kind of aim their stinger, I always think of, like, that would be a lesson to learn, right? If you tried to pick up an ant and then it stung you like that, these guys, they're considered velvet ant. They're called velvet ants, but they're actually a type of wingless wasp. All right, very strong stingers. And so these are guarded, right? They're heavily guarded via their stingers, and they are heavily able to kind of defend themselves, and when you interact with them, you are likely to learn a lesson. And that is where I went with this card, because, you know, every now and again, that's what you're feeling. Now, with my friend here, I have my ant, which is 1, and then I believe I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so I am likely going to be sketching either smaller ants or digitally putting some more in, because this is the 9 of Wands, so we are going to want 9 insects. I thought about leaving these kind of as like footprints, kind of moving forward and considering like the lessons you've learned, so kind of like footprints in the sand. Maybe I will leave them as footprints. I like them. The 10 of Wands is a leafcutter ant. Evolutionarily speaking, aren't ants kind of wasps too? Well, that's a great question. Ants are in the same order as bees and wasps, but I don't know exactly if ants and wasps are a homologous group. You think it has more of an impact with just one velvet ant? I think so too. I think that you're right. I think that that's a true statement, Susan. I'll probably leave it as footprints. And it gives a little bit of a remembering your lessons kind of feel if you're seeing it kind of like walking a path. The 10 of Wands, I figured I would have kind of these 9 little ants with their little leaves carrying it down the tree. And then we have this friend here who has a leaf that is way too big for him. And the constellation that this card is connected with, I believe it's Sagittarius, is in the Leaf Nation. And so, this card is all about overburdening yourself with your workload. Like, feeling super responsible and being super successful, but having a huge burden and being super stressed because of the amount of work that you've put on yourself due to your like personal feelings of obligations to your work. So that I always imagine leafcutter bee ants because they're carrying such a huge load and they are walking back and forth and they are just trying to get by, right? So this ant here has just bit off too much that he can carry. And if you look in the back, all of the other leafcutter ants, they've got little itty bitty leaves that they're taking care of. And our friend here, his leaf is the size of his body. All right, so that is the story of the Ten of Wands and the meanings or the events that would be that may be happening in your life if you were to pull this card. And it feels like there are a handful of people in the chat that are feeling a little bit of that. He has literally bit off more than he can chew. Exactly. He's literally done it. So a lot of times the story behind this is like, hey, if you see this card regularly coming up in readings, maybe you're doing too much. Maybe you should start to eliminate unnecessary tasks or learn to delegate your tasks better in your workplace. Alrighty. We only have 4 more, and they are the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. So just like if you were imagining a deck of cards going Ace to 10, and then Ace to 10, and then moving to like the face cards, that's what you're seeing here, is these are the face cards. Except that in the tarot deck, you have 4 face cards. The Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. The Page is an enthusiastic, and this is the Page of Wands. Let's see, I'm going to read this chat first. I read something about how leafcutter ants will chew a semicircle of leaf and then grab it before it falls, except half of the time they accidentally grab the leaf instead of the little piece. Okay, that's really funny, Susan. I haven't seen or heard that, but honestly, it would not surprise me if that was the case with the leafcutter bees. Yay, Avea! I'm so happy that you are taking that responsibility and minimizing it in your life by delegating responsibilities. Sometimes that is the only thing left to do. Alrighty, our friend here is the Page of Wands. And this is not a leafcutter ant, but a leafcutter bee. That's awesome, Chaos. So you have a pet leafcutter ant colony. Are you then in the American Southwest? Are you in, like, Arizona? Wait a minute. No, you're in Germany? That's so cool. All right, so this is my leafcutter bee, and my leafcutter bee is just emerging out of the cell. So you can see that there are these kind of circles around it. That is a cell or a tube of cut leaves. And I'm likely going to go back in and add leaf venation in these so that they look more realistic, like circles of leaves. But the queen, or the mom, would have cut these leaves and put them all together and made this little tube for my beautiful little leafcutter bee. And this Page of Wands, this is a brand new leafcutter bee just coming out of its pupal cell. Aww. So it's wearing kind of like you could imagine one of those Renaissance hats with the round edge and the top. And so our leafcutter bee, our brand new leafcutter bee, is an enthusiastic adventurer, right? He's coming out and he's getting ready to start a new journey. He's got new ideas about life. And so this card could represent you or a person you know. That's generally how the face cards go, is they're either you or somebody who is close to you that they're kind of trying to represent. And the Page of Wands is learning to use his new energy and new desire to meet new and exciting goals. All right, so that is our friend, the Page of Wands. Then we have the Knight of Wands. And our friend, the Knight of Wands, this is a really interesting wasp. I'm going to darken the sketch a little bit so that you can see it a little bit better. But this wasp here is called a fig wasp. And I don't know if you have heard of fig wasps, but if you have eaten a fig, you have eaten this wasp. How many of you have eaten figs? So this is a really, yeah. And they have super wacky looking antenna, and they have a super long, drawn out face. They are a crazy, absolutely crazy looking insect. Exactly. And so our Knight of Wands is a fig wasp. Now, I'm not sure how much of that is true, that the actual crunch is the wasps. But because I believe that the fruit actually eats the wasp. The fruit is a little bit acidic or has some chemicals where the wasp, after pollinating the fruit, will just break down into the fruit. So what you're really eating is fig wasp protein and not really the entire insect. The fig actually eats the wasp first, and then you eat the fig. Yes. So, you know, I'm going to go ahead and look this up really quick and give myself a quick reminder because, admittedly, I don't always remember all of the things. So, let's see. Yes, this big wasp that we sketched here is the female. Only the females fly. And then the males are the ones that actually will stay in the figs too. So the female will fly around. She lays her eggs. Those eggs come up and hatch. How does this work? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't all the way remember. So essentially the idea is that the wasp enters the fig to mate with the male, and then she lays her eggs inside of the fig. And so because she's entered, she's now like pollinating it, and then she passes away in the fruit. And then the baby wasps hatch in the fruit. And I believe they feed on the fruit, and then they mature. And then the males and the females will mate inside of the fruit. And then the females will emerge, and they go pollinate, and they'll go and enter a new fruit to lay their eggs. Something along those lines. So, with our fig wasp, there are a couple of symbols that are important for the Knight of Wands. A lot of times when you're talking about knights, there is a steed or a horse involved, and I'm not the best at drawing horse heads yet, so we're gonna fix that soon. But also the pyramids and the lizard is also like part of the symbology of this card. So I wanted to make sure that those were kind of down here and involved somehow. The Knight of Wands, keep in mind it is a face card, so it's also a person that is you or someone that you may know. And this person is adventurous and risk-taking and passionate and confident and has short attention span and needs stimulation and is moving all over the place. And so my fig wasp, I imagine, is very adventurous and risk-taking. I mean, going out and pollinating and then entering a fig to mate and be eaten by the fig, I think that's pretty adventurous and taking many risks. And I think it would also align with passionate, because the males and the females will mate inside of the figs and the males will die there, right? And so this is the female. This one looks like this long sword thing. That is her ovipositor. That's what she uses to lay her eggs. Can you put a dragonfly for this card too? I mean, adventurous and risk-taking and passionate. Yeah. Adventure span, moving frequently. I would say for sure a dragonfly would really align well with this card. I was personally trying to make sure all of my wands stayed as bees, wasps, and ants. And so that's why I wasn't considering other insects like dragonflies. And admittedly, I don't know if I chose a dragonfly for any of my cards. And they're definitely an insect that should be shown at some point. No, I didn't draw a dragonfly. We might have to fix that. Sounds a lot like Marley, the adventurous and risk-taking part. Yeah. I don't know Marley, but I can imagine if he's adventurous and risk-taking and fairly confident, yeah, he could be your Knight of Wands. Will you use a variety of different orders for the major arcana? Yes. I have a variety of different animals for the major arcana. And the major arcana are actually already completed, too. They're just not inked out. I just haven't finished inking these, and so I thought this was a great time to do that, Inktober. All right, my queen. My Queen of Wands is none other than a brand new Queen Bumblebee. All right. She is mature. She is confident. She is dedicated to her career and her family. And she is generally found popular and fun. All right. She can be you or someone that you know. This sketch is super light, so I could darken it a little bit. It shows it shows our queen bee here laying eggs. And the interesting thing about the first generation of queen bumblebees is that she has to care for her first generation of babies, right? So her babies can't take care of her for the first generation. So she's here kind of holding this wand with a couple of leaves on it, laying her eggs. And she is mature and confident in her ability to take care of her brand new family that she is going to be raising. And then once she cares for all of this first generation of babies, then they will care for her. Yes, there is a dragonfly that migrates across the Indian Ocean, and it stops by island after island. I believe I made a whiteboard video about dragonflies, and it very quickly touches on that behavior of dragonflies and their ability to migrate across oceans. So if you are curious, you can always go and check that out. If you went to my channel, to the whiteboards area, and you just went and searched dragonflies, I'm sure it would come up. And it comes up with all types of other fun facts about dragonflies, like the fact that there are some species of dragonflies that can fly up to 35 miles an hour. Super impressive. All right, so this is our queen bumblebee, and she is underground, ready to start this next generation. Susan says, queen bumblebees are the only ones that survive the winter, aren't they? Yes. Out of the entire colony of bumblebees, all of the drones and all of the workers die in the fall. And so the queen in the spring, when she is a fresh new queen, she's got to start laying her new batch of eggs all over again. And so that's why I imagine bumblebees, queen bumblebees in particular, as being very mature and very confident in who they are, because they need all of their family dies in the fall, and then they need to lay eggs and reconnect with an entire family in the spring. And so I would definitely say she is dedicated to her family and to her career, which is laying eggs for a queen bumblebee. And she is likely popular. Bumblebees are pretty popular with people and mature and confident. Yeah, their workers die too. Chaos, thank you for the comment on my whiteboard videos. I definitely need to keep doing them. It's been probably a couple of months since I did my last one. They take a little more time than you would expect, and so when I'm working on a bunch of different projects, generally it's the whiteboard videos that get put to the side. I have 3 more planned. My next 3 are aquatic conversations. All right, so I believe I answered everybody's questions in the comments. We just had a huge spike of new viewers here to our live stream, so I just want to say to those of you who are new, thank you for joining us. Feel free to answer any questions in the comments. All right, our last wand. There is only one more wand. We are moving from the Queen of Wands to the King of Wands. And when I think of the king of bees, wasps, and ants, I think of, and I believe some of you will agree, do any of you recognize this one with the super curly antenna? I will give you a hint. It's found in the American Southwest. And it's generally a black or metallic blue body with blue or orange wings. There you go, Susan. Pepsis. We are looking at a Tarantula hawk wasp. And thank you, Susan. I realized that, it's just a sketch, so I would not blame you if you didn't know exactly what this insect was to genus. But I super appreciate that some of you girls got it. Some of you, ladies and gentlemen, got it, because that means the sketch is decent. Yay! So, this is our King of Wands, the Tarantula hawk wasp. Now, the King of Wands is you or a person that you know, and they are generally considered a natural leader. All right, so they like to take risks, they're motivated to make positive change, and are also generally devoted to their family. So the queen and the king, and a lot of times of all of the suits, are devoted to their families. And so the king is this natural leader motivated to make positive change. He takes risks, and I don't know, when I think of the king of wasps, I can't exactly put my finger on it. Why I would consider the tarantula hawk the king, but it's so large and it's so impactful, and so many people have seen it and know about it. And I would say, if you're going to sting a tarantula and bury it in the ground, you've got to be devoted to your family and devoted to your babies to be able to do that. And the very waspy abdomen. I saw some article that bumblebees can fly higher than the height of Mount Everest. Have you heard, Trisha? Chaos! I have not heard or seen that article, but if you have access to the article, or if you have seen that, I would love to see the DOI or a link to that article, because that would be fascinating to read. I have not heard that, so I don't even know how to start with that one. I can't imagine it would be easy for them to breathe up there, but they do breathe through diffusion, so it would be interesting to see. Definitely Jack. All right. And who? He's the king of wands. Yeah, I mean, oh, a giant ichneumon. Ooh, that would have been a good one too. Oh, a giant ichneumon would have been so good. Susan, that was a good connection too. I don't have a giant ichneumon anywhere yet, and I always loved ichneumons growing up. So we might have to find a way to get the ichneumon into one of these cards. I might. We'll see. I don't think the ichneumon is a fool. I've been trying to come up with an insect that aligns with the fool, and I still don't have that one yet. So I'm gonna be working on it. But it is midnight 01, ladies and gentlemen. It is 12:01. I do want to get an idea as to how you felt this session went, because this is the first time that I've kind of shared my knowledge of the tarot deck and the way that they may connect to insects. It's something that I've kind of always internalized and just kind of understood, but have never kind of put it to paper and put words to it. And I don't know if any of you have had this experience, but sometimes putting words to something that you've just always had in your head is a little bit more difficult. So I'm curious, did you guys enjoy learning about the tarot deck? Did you think that learning about the insects in combination with the tarot deck worked out well? Are there things that you would have liked to have heard? Was the inking good? What do we think? Let's say. Giant ichneumons are cool, but I agree with your reasoning on the tarantula hawk. I guess you're right. They're not really taking much risk in their. They do make positive change, but you're right. The tarantula hawk takes much more risk. Ooh. An and a swallowtail with its osmeterium out. I do like that idea. Let me check my cups and make sure I don't have... I don't. I don't have a swallowtail caterpillar sketched yet. So that sounds like it might be what I do for my fool. That would be cool. Thank you for the idea. Oh, Avea says that she loved this. Yay, that makes me so happy. All right. The Bumblebee paper DOI, that's on its way. Hopefully that'll be good. Aha! I'm using Lepidopteran for cups. Yes, I will be using Lepidopteran for cups. I also will be using the flies for the swords. And I'm using beetles for pentacles. Although, the pentacles look like this right now. I haven't drawn many of the beetles for my, tarot deck. So when we're going over the beetles, we might just be talking about symbology and doing some pencil sketches. So yeah, we have the cups with butterflies to go over. We have the swords with flies. And we have the pentacles for the beetles. And then at some point, if you guys want, we can go over some of the major arcana. And some of the major arcana sketches. Oh, I really like this one. The Emperor is a giant dung beetle. How cool is he? Oh, and the lovers! Oh, man. These are really cool, too. So this is a beetle called Melanophylla. Their genus literally comes out to Melano, meaning kind of dark, and Phylo, meaning loving. And they are attracted to fire. So when there's a forest fire, they can actually sense the heat of the forest fire from miles away, and then they travel to the fire instead of running away from the fire, and they will mate amongst the ashes. And then when they lay their eggs on burnt and darkened wood, and their babies bore into trees that have fallen due to forest fire. This is the card. I'm calling them the lovers because they're literally attracted to fire and they mate amongst the ashes of forest fires. I just think that is really, really awesome. Oh, and you're curious what the name was again. They're Melanophylla. And I actually do have a whole whiteboard video that talks about them too. They are called the fire chasing. If you want to look it up on my channel, they are called the fire chasing beetles, or the fire chasing beetle. Yeah, so the lovers are meant to represent kind of Adam and Eve a little bit. They're mostly talking about kind of love and union and cooperation. And a lot of times, yes, they can and are a lot of drawn as Adam and Eve, but more of the times you're not specifically drawn to those two people, but the characteristics of those people. So love, cooperation, sexuality, passion, friendship, spiritual devotion, those types of things are represented by the lovers. And that's why there's a snake, because it relates back to Adam and Eve, so there is a snake there in representation of that, yes. Yeah, and so they are the lovers. And so, I don't know, there are so many different, also the major arcana, like, there's the Hanged Man, and he's a tobacco hornworm with parasitoid cocoons coming off of him. He's definitely the Hanged Man. And yes, snakes can symbolize rebirth. See you, Vea, you're doing, we're all sharing all of these things. I love it. Sweet. I will just go ahead and look that up, Chaos. Thank you. I just haven't looked it up before. Solanaceae? That is a plant name. I know that much. Ah, tobacco hornworms. Tobacco is in, yes, there you go. See, I am the Nightshade family. Yes, very, very good. Let's see. Obviously, for death, we have the death's head moth. I figure that's really the only option for death. Man, we have so many. I don't want to go over all of the major arcana tonight. I'll just show you the fun ones before we go. So, if you've ever seen the Black Witch Moth, she's what I would consider, the moon is a major arcana card, and she is the Black Witch Moth. The moon is generally reflective of your shadow self, or kind of, confusion in your dreams, and a lot of times will relate more to your unconscious intuition rather than something real, like more an unconscious darkness. And that is the moon. And so that is why I chose the Black Witch Moth. The Black Witch Moth is also kind of scary to watch fly in. It has a huge wingspan. It has one of the largest wingspans. And when they fly in, it honestly looks like there's a bat coming in. And I've only collected one in my entire life, and I met it in Texas. And I no longer have that specimen. And let's see, the last major arcana I'm going to share with you today is the Devil. You get so many brownie points, ladies and gentlemen, if you can tell me what type of insect this is. I'll give you a hint. It is aquatic and it lives in waterfalls. Now, I'm going to double check the spelling on this friend here. Blephariseridae. The only letter I got wrong is right about here. It is an E rather than an A. All right. So we were super, super close. This is a Blephariseridae. Now, it is... It looks a lot like, I will give it to you, it looks a lot like a hellgrammite, right? Or a Dobson fly larva. And admittedly, I considered a hellgrammite because the word hell is in their name and we're doing the devil. Right? It is a larva. It is actually a fly larva. It is a type of maggot. And the Blephariseridae is an immature or a maggot stage that this is what the top looks like. If you flip this specimen over and you look at the bottom of it, every single one of these little segmentations has a circular suction cup on the bottom of it. And these guys literally suction cup themselves to rocks at waterfalls, in waterfalls. All right, so the devil, or at least the meaning of the devil tarot card, is not about being particularly evil or particularly trying to come out and get you. The devil is more about having attachments, having things that limit you, having a commitment to something that may be holding you back in other regards in your life. And so when I think about restriction and attachment, the strongest attachment I can think of is of this little maggot suctioning itself to a rock amidst a waterfall. And then when they pupate, they're a pupa on that same rock in that same waterfall. And when they emerge as a fly, they have to emerge, dry their wings, and fly away fast enough that they don't get swept away by the waterfall. So they definitely have what I would consider a restriction or attachments that are possibly dangerous and holding them back from other places in their lives. And that is a blepharocerid. Oh, why are Capricorns always considered evil? I don't know. I'm sorry. They're not evil. They're just connected. Really do be extreme, huh? Is that the Capricorn, constellation? I believe that that's where we're connecting this to. Yes. Yep. Yeah, so that is, you caught it first. That is our Capricorn constellation. So that is definitely the constellation that's connected in with our major arcana, the Devil. All right, so yeah, super cool fly, super cool specimen, and when I get to talk to you about this, about the tarot deck and the meanings in these tarot decks, I think it's also really cool that I can show you specimens that I normally don't get to talk about, because I don't have this specimen, so there's no way that I was going to be able to show it to you under a microscope and sketch it with you. And so to have it on the card, to have the ability to kind of talk about it, learn about it, and look at a sketch here, super fun. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my last major arcana that I am sharing with you today. We are going to, at some point, go over all of the major arcana, just not today. I'm getting a little tired. I've got to wake up in the morning pretty early. So I appreciate all of you who are here, those of you who have been interacting with me, and those who are staying quiet in the background. I hear and appreciate you too. All right, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging out with me on this Tuesday Tarot Day. We are doing Invertober all month long. All right, every single day of October at 10 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Pacific, I will be live doing something. Mondays, we have live animals. Tuesdays, we have tarot. Wednesdays and Fridays and Saturdays, I'm going to be going through old pencil drawings, and we're going to be inking them. And then Thursdays and Sundays, we do brand new insect illustrations using the microscope. And we are doing this for the entire month of October. If you are curious about any of the topics that are coming up, they are on John Law's calendar, so you can go ahead and find them there. What else is important? Let's see, we're doing Invertober every single day. Excuse me, I do have to pick a day of the month to do an entire collection showing, because I want to, what do we call those, like a walkthrough? I want to give you a walkthrough of my collection where we go through all of my drawers and we just use my desktop camera and we talk about what I have and what and maybe holes in my collection and how to identify things. It'll be fun. Alrighty. Alright, so, OutSchool. Join me on OutSchool. If you know a student ages 5 to 8 or 9 to 12 that would enjoy learning about insects or meeting other buggy friends, I do teach junior bug clubs and weekly insect studies. They meet once a week on Zoom, and your students who love bugs can meet other bug lovers, and we can talk and discuss about a new insect every week. It's so much fun. All right, if you use the link in the description box below, then you can, OutSchool will actually give you $20 to give me for class. So, you get your first $20 of classes for free. This is your reminder to please subscribe to my channel. If you are here and you are a newcomer, welcome. We love you. We appreciate you, and we are excited for you to come back. Please subscribe so that you know when I go live, and that is every day of this month. Now, I also have this little QR code there. That QR code helps you buy my Tarantula a mealworm or buy me a coffee, it gives you the ability to tip me for the live streams and for the work we do here. So you can use the QR code, or there's a link in the description box below that links directly to my PayPal. Anything I receive, I am super, super grateful for, and I am also just grateful for you being here. Just being here and interacting and chatting is honestly enough, but if you want to throw me a little bit more, it's always appreciated, and I know many of you regulars do this as a normal thing, and it makes a world of difference. So I want to say thank you so much for helping support Insectopia as we continue to grow and continue to teach about bugs. If you are looking for Insectopia and you can't find me, it's because I'm also at Insectopia 2015. All right? And so if you can't find me at Insectopia, I am at Insectopia 2015 on both Facebook and Instagram. Whew. All right, I got through all of that. I hope that everybody had a wonderful time today. I'm glad that I got so many positive reviews on this session. So we are going to continue with this type of session next week. And I believe the symbol that we are doing next week is on the Jack Law's calendar. So you can go and check that out. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a wonderful night. And stay buggy. Bye.